Goedendag, good day. How are you, lovely human being, feeling at this moment? My name is Phylicia Joy Kloes, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you the birth story of our beautiful child. So without further ado, here is how the birthing process went down. So I'm not going to share any days because I feel like it's good to keep a lot of information about my baby offline. So I'm going to be vague about that. However, I am going to share that it was an early Sunday morning. It was about 5 a.m. and I noticed while I was laying in bed that the discharge was very, very watery. And before, I noticed during the pregnancy that my discharge was more, but this time it was like actual drips. I felt 3 drips. And I thought, that's weird. So I went to the bathroom. I barely let out any pee, went back to bed. Then I felt it again and I was like, okay, that is weird. I have to go back to the toilet again and put a pad in. So while I was laying there, I think around that time, I was 5:30 or so, I started to feel cramps a little bit. And I was thinking, why am I feeling cramps? That's different. So I started to look online, watery discharge. And I visited 4 different websites and a lot of it said your water broke. So I thought, if 4 different websites say that, then how did it go again? Because I enjoyed going to this group where we talked about all different aspects around pregnancy, giving birth, and after birth. So I received a lot of information from them, as well as some papers with information. 3 days before that Sunday, on Thursday, I actually had an appointment, and the doctor said that baby's gonna sit for a little while because I had enough water inside the uterus. So that was false alarm. So I went to the living room because I thought, okay, well, what if this actually is not just a cramp, but preparation for birth? And I thought, what was it again? How did it work again? So I walked to the living room and I sit down on my butt on the floor and I put my feet together and my knees are outward. And I grab the paper and I'm just reading what it says. And out of nowhere, I had a lot of water come out. And I thought, wait, am I peeing myself and not having control over it? It was very, very confusing for me at that time because I never experienced that before. Of course, you have to catch some of the water in a jar or in a glass, and regular water that broke is clear. It's not having any weird colors. It could be kind of grayish or pinkish, and it could be with or without little pieces. And if it's green or brown, it's set to call right away. When it's a regular color, you just call when it's the daytime. And if it's at nighttime, then you call at 8:45. So that's what it said on the paper. So as I was reading it, the water broke, as I mentioned. And I thought to myself, oh wait, I have to catch it. So I get up, I see a puddle on the floor and I'm like, oh wow, this really is just my water breaking. I get a jar, it stops, but then it comes back again. And I see that there are those little pieces in it, little white flakes, so to speak. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, this really is it. So I walked to the bedroom and Musa actually hung out with his friends the night before. So he came home pretty late and I told him, baby, my water just broke. I think it's gonna start. And he was first not waking up because he just went to bed. And I told him again, I was like, I think my water just broke and it's gonna happen. And he was like, it's gonna happen? I was like, yeah, I think the baby can come. So he woke up a little bit more and I was like, come to the living room with me. So we went to the living room and I showed him the puddle and I told him, well, on the paper it said that you have to wait with calling, but should I wait? And he just said, just call. So So I called and I explained what had happened. And the friendly lady on the phone was saying, yeah, I think your water broke. So I told her, so it could come in 24 hours. She said, yes, but it can also take 72 hours. And if it's longer than that, then you have to go to the hospital. So I was like, okay. And I told her, I'm going back to bed. She said, that's a really good idea. I also asked what I had to do with the water that I put in a little jar or in a glass bowl. And she said, just save it on your countertop and then we'll look at it when you're there or when we are there. She also mentioned that later on in the morning, someone would come over and see what's up. Something I also noticed when my water broke is that I was noticing that my boobs were not touching my belly anymore. And before, like, my boobs were touching my belly. So I noticed, oh, my belly has actually dropped. Like, it's probably the real deal. I go to the bathroom again and I notice that in my underwear, it's more slimy. So I thought to myself, that's probably the mucus plug, because I learned that that is a little bit more slimy than just the water that I was catching. I go back to bed and I text my mom and my grandmother what just happened. And of course, my grandmother is online. She doesn't sleep that well, and maybe she even felt it. But I texted them and explained that my water had broke and that I'm not sure how long things can go for, of course, but just to let them know. I think it's funny because right now I'm looking back at my notes and I honestly totally forgot that before my water broke, my tummy was cramping a little bit. I wasn't remembering that at all, but I do remember that when I went back to bed, the cramping started and I was thinking, there's a cramp. And then it went away. And then the cramp came back again. I was like, that's weird. So I started to screenshot every time I had a cramp. I also noticed that I started to do the breath work by breathing 4 counts in and 6 counts out. And that honestly was helpful. So yeah, the cramps were pretty close together. I was questioning so many things in my head, like, oh, did I enjoy the kicks in my tummy enough? Like, oh, do I have to pee? Oh yeah, I have to pee. I also had some stool. Bless you. Gezondheid, gezondheid. I also had some stool that went out, and I realized, oh yeah, my body is really making sure that it's empty enough to get ready for the birthing process. One thought that really was helpful for me was remembering I can do a 10K, so I also have enough endurance to do this. I sometimes had some back pain, some lower back pain when I had the cramp. And when I noticed that the cramps were getting heavier and heavier, I noticed, yeah, this is just starting point of labor. So I did sleep a little bit. At 7:39, I fell asleep after capturing the last cramp. What is V in English? I'm sorry for calling it cramp because it's not. Oh, contraction. That's what it's called. So at 7:39, I tracked my last contraction and I woke up again around 8 and then I started to capture the contractions again. At first, they were doable with just breathing. And I also played a hypnobirthing playlist on Spotify. But when they became heavier, I started to notice that the hypnobirthing podcast was starting to bother me so much. So I turned on my Feel Good playlist, and that was such a great thing to do because that helped me get out of my head a little bit more. And breathing became a little bit easier when I did that. After about 2 hours of waking up, so from 8 until 10, I called the doctor. And she said she was going to be here or at the previous home in an hour and a half. She also asked me if I took a shower, which I didn't yet because the bathroom felt really, really hot and made me really uncomfortable because the heat made me like nauseous or lightheaded. And she said you can also use a hot water bottle on your back, so I did, and that was really lovely. Around 10:26, I stopped tracking my contractions because it was just a lot. Hey, Moppy. Hey, Moppy. Filming with a baby is tricky. Baby was coming sooner than we had planned, especially since the doctor said on the Thursday before the whole birthing process on Sunday. We really didn't expect baby to already come. So we didn't have the snacks I wanted. We didn't put the car seat in the car yet. We didn't wash the clothes yet. We didn't put the co-sleeper together. There were a lot of things that we still had to do. I didn't even pack my hospital bag. But yeah, Musa went to the grocery store at 11 and then I threw up as well, which is very common as your body is cleaning itself out. The night before, I was noticing that I was feeling more burpy and I noticed that I was getting a little nauseous from that. So I had eaten ginger, so that was the only thing that came out. I also had diarrhea, which again showed me, oh yeah, my body is getting ready. I decided to actually take a shower after that, and I just sat under the hot water for so long. We have a small water heater in that house, so the water gets cold, especially when I wash my hair. It just gets cold if you're under the shower so long. So I actually stayed under there until it got cold. I sat on the borrowed stool under the shower, and the shower was honestly really lovely. I definitely recommend, even though I didn't know how to sit anymore, because with the contractions I had to switch up so many times. Like, it was kind of uncomfortable to sit and also to stand, and like nothing felt great sitting wise or standing wise, but I just switched up a bunch. The crazy thing is, and it's also kind of gross, I didn't even get to brush my teeth, because around that time my contractions were close to one another quite a bit, like 3 minutes or so. And so getting my toothbrush ready, let alone brushing my teeth, was too much, I guess, to do. At 11:30, the doctor came to our house, and with a glove she was feeling inside, and she could feel the baby, she said. She also felt that I had 4 centimeters ontsluiting. What is that in English? The width was 4 centimeters, and she could feel the head of the baby, that it had gone down a little bit. Then she also mentioned that she wanted to feel another contraction. So she told me she was going to leave her fingers, and then when the contraction happened, she could just feel how that was. She also mentioned that it's normal to puke because your body is trying to choose how to save energy, and if you want to digest food, that also costs your body some energy, of course. So that's why your body does that. And it's choosing either to let it go up or to let it go down. So the doctor asked me, did I eat something? I didn't. I asked Musa to make me a sandwich with peanut butter, and the doctor said jokingly, oh, you'll have 3 bites, that's it. I ended up only having 1. She was right. I was not having time to eat. I did not want to eat. Around 12, my mom and my grandmother came, because earlier I forgot to mention, I told them, I'm not sure, maybe you should come. So they did come. So with the contractions getting heavier and heavier, I started to notice that I didn't know what to do with myself. And I couldn't focus on my breath that much. So I focused a lot more on what I felt, which is not recommended, but yeah, I sometimes just couldn't get out of my head and focus on the breathing. But what helped was drinking water, having wet washcloths on my head, having a fan because it was quite warm in the house, and having music on. What also was really lovely, Musa was there every time I had a bad contraction, so I could squeeze his hand, or he would massage my lower back. Musa also helped me with breathing, but I noticed sometimes his breath was faster than what I was doing, but everything was really lovely, especially the squeezing hand thing. The doctor was still there, and she asked me if I wanted to use a TENS machine, which is this machine that has these labels that you put on your lower back, and that's attached to a machine, and the whole time the machine is doing like shocks. And when you turn it on, well, basically it's always on, but when you don't turn it on, it's like shocking a little bit. And then when you have a contraction, you press the button, and then it's just giving you a shock in that area. So your focus is more on that rather than the sensation you feel from having a contraction. And this is honestly the greatest invention. I enjoyed using this a lot, and that definitely helped, especially from, I think, well, 1/3 into the contractions towards close to the end of the contractions. The doctor said she was going to leave and we would have contact again at 3. So a gut feeling told me that that was too late, but I didn't tell her that I thought it was too late. I didn't say it out loud. I first was laying in the bedroom for a while, and then I moved to the yoga mat in the living room. While I was in the living room, I asked my mom and Musa to prepare my bag for the hospital. And around that time, the contractions were a lot heavier. So whenever they would ask me questions to make decisions on, I couldn't answer. I just pointed, because so much of my energy was used to endure the contractions, or my body was using so much energy to have these contractions. So I just pointed. Because the contractions got more heavy, I asked my mom to call the doctor. So at 12:50, she called, and the doctor said, okay, instead of having contact at 3, we'll see each other at the hospital at 3. The contractions again got heavier and heavier, and I remember my grandmother told me, take it easy. And I remember, oh yeah, taking it easy. But the contractions were getting so heavy, and the stents machine or TENS machine wasn't doing fully what it did before, even though I increased the sensation. With every heavier contraction, Musa was right there behind me or next to me or fanning me or giving me a new a cold washcloth or holding my hand, saying sweet things. And apparently I squeezed his hand so hard that his bones cracked, which I didn't even know. Like, my squeezing power, I feel like, is usually not that strong, but around that time it definitely was. And I noticed towards the end at home with the contractions, my contractions were getting so severe that my body had the urge to push already. And during that time, I was like, oh no, I have to poo. And when that feeling comes, baby is going to come and I'm not allowed to push yet. Even though my body literally had the urge to just push. Because towards those last contractions, anytime I had a contraction, my body automatically pushed. And I felt like something was gonna come out already. Yes. Okay, I have to film the rest later on. It's a little bit later on. I just fed our baby, and baby is now playing. So let's continue on. So at 13:28, I asked my mom to call the doctor again to tell her that I really felt like baby was coming. As I mentioned, it felt like I had to poo, and I knew from previous stories that when you have that feeling, that baby is pretty much soon to be ready to be delivered. And I felt like if things weren't going faster, then I was gonna have to give birth at home. So the contractions towards the end got a lot more heavier, and during my whole birthing process, pain was a forbidden word because I felt like I could be in a spiral, a negative spiral, when I would focus on that word and then at that sensation. But looking back now, the last contractions were the most painful, so to speak. And the natural urge of my body to push automatically was so interesting, and I had to hold myself from pushing more. At 1:28 in the afternoon, I asked my mom to call again, and I really thought I had to go to the hospital around that time. The doctor was gonna call the hospital to see if there was a spot for me available. And at 13:34, we called again because I really could not handle this at home anymore. I really felt like baby was gonna come because I felt like something pushing like a head at the opening of my uterus very, very clearly. So we were allowed to go to the hospital, and we were gonna meet my doctor there. So I was walking like a penguin, and walking was difficult because I had so many contractions that were close together. Getting dressed was difficult. Walking to the car was with a lot of different breaks. And I was standing in front of the car door and I was thinking, how am I going to sit down? But it turned out okay. I was sitting down, but I was sitting kind of sideways. My mom was driving, and every bump she took very slowly. We got to the hospital and the doctor asked me, do you want to wait for your mom to park? And I was like, no, we have to go in. There was a wheelchair available for me. I sat sideways because I felt like I was sitting on something. Felt like I was sitting on a head. And then I don't really remember the route we took because I was in my own zone. We got to the room at 2:02, and right away I just felt like putting my pants down, taking my underwear off. And the doctor measured the opening, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but she did say, kind of surprisingly, and in a way with all like, oh wow, you're farther along. You're really far along. And I don't remember if she said you have 10 centimeters or if she said you can start, something along those lines. I got on the bed on my hands and knees. I was sitting on my hands and knees, my knees together, my feet outward, because I learned during the hypnobirthing courses, I didn't really take courses, but during the YouTube videos, I learned that that is helpful for the last stages. And I totally forgot the middle stage because I was moving too far along. Baby and I were working so well together. So I was sitting on my hands and knees until that was cramping so much, like it felt like I had run a 10K. And then I switched, the bed was moving upward, so I was leaning on it and still on my knees with my feet outward, knees together. And I was pushing, but also breathing through the push, like, because that's what I had been learning. And then I wanted to switch again. I went on my side and I asked for a peanut ball. I did get compliments throughout the birthing process, which is really nice, from the doctor, but also from Musa. He was such a great support, honestly. And he was like fanning me during the process. My mom, my grandmother, and the assistant doctor were also helping me work with, for example, making the wet washcloth cold again. And I remember when I asked one time to make it cold again, they were asking me, is the other washcloth okay? And I was like, what other washcloth? I didn't notice that there was a hot one at the bottom, which helps your muscle tissue to have more blood circulation and helps to relax it more so it can slowly stretch a little bit. And when I started to focus on it, I felt a little hot, so I wanted it to go away. But then I really wanted it back again. Speaking of which, the other doctor, it's not really an assistant doctor, but the other doctor all of a sudden was there. And I didn't even notice her coming in. She was just there out of nowhere. I kept turning on the TENS machine. Baby's heart was okay. I heard the doctor say a lot of times, like, oh, smart baby. Because during the moment, before the ring of fire, I guess, or around the ring of fire, I guess that is the ring of fire, where you have a contraction, you push, and then the baby goes back a little bit, and then you push, and then the baby goes back a little bit, because, you know, your tissue has to slowly stretch, because that prevents tears. But we really worked together really well. The funny thing is, though, around that time, I was only able to push 2 times, and then I got so tired. Plus the contractions stopped. In the hospital, the contractions were further apart, which allowed me to relax more often. But yeah, it was a lot of work. I noticed there was a moment in my head when I was laying on my right side that I was thinking, oh, can I actually do this? And I got a little insecure. I didn't say it out loud because no one knew that I was thinking that. So, yeah, that was kind of a scary thought. That's not very helpful. But then I just kept focusing on the breathing. And the doctor actually told me, Phylicia, actually try this time to not breathe along with your contraction when you push, but try to just push. And I used my voice sometimes to just do a little or I just pushed without breathing through it. And that did save some energy, but it was kind of counterintuitive to what I had practiced before without actually delivering a baby. So I wanted to switch again to the other side. When I was on my left side this time, I had to hold my leg up a little bit, and Musa actually helped me because it was quite tiring to hold your leg up and to have your foot outward, because that helps with the opening of your becken. What is becken in English? Of your bottom. When I was on the other side, the doctor reminded me again, don't breathe alongside your pushing, just push. So then I wanted to switch again. And then the doctor was like, no, Phylicia, just one more time. I don't think she actually said no, but just one more time. And I was thinking in my head, one more time? I want to switch again. But then Musa told me, Fee, just try it one more time. And all of a sudden in my head, there was something that switched. In my head, I was thinking, soon I'm going to have my lovely baby on top of me. And that did something wonderful, because out of nowhere, I had the power and endurance to push not just twice, what I've been doing before, but I pushed 4 times. And that time, the head came out. And I noticed around me, a lot of people were excited. And I don't really like remember feeling the last contraction before baby was fully out. That kind of just happened, I feel like, because the head was probably the most tricky part. And then, well, there of course was another contraction because otherwise the last part of the body doesn't come out. But then I had a little break again when the head came out, and then I had another contraction. And then the rest of the body was delivered, and I felt just the cord. But I did ask, is it out? And then they were like, yeah, it's out. I can't stand blood that much, so they cleaned the bloody parts a little bit. Not too much because I wanted the cover of, your body that is giving the skin its protection to be on there, but the blood they kind of took out. They gave me the baby, and I saw that I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. I'm so grateful. Wow, that is kind of making me having the feels. So then I had our baby boy on top of me. I saw the biggest smile of Musa. He was so happy, and he was such a proud dad. And I had the skin to skin with him for a while. I also had to deliver the uterus, of course, and that was really quick. I didn't feel any contractions around that time, but my body must have given contractions because otherwise I couldn't have delivered that. But what I noticed was the doctor was kind of pushing on my belly, and that feeling was not nice. None that I remember it from not being nice, but I read it in my notes that I thought it was not nice. And she was kind of like pushing it down, I feel like, and then I had to push a little bit, and then it came out. It was like a blob. It was, of course, smaller than a baby, but also bigger than what I thought in advance what it was going to feel like, but not like painful at all. Like that was done really quickly. And I wanted my mom to take a picture of it. I didn't want to see it because, I am kind of scared to see things like that, but I did want to have the option to look at it in the future. I had my feel good music playing at the hospital, and the moment that our baby boy came out was 14:39, and so 2:39 p.m. and he was born with the song "A Lovely Day, Lovely Day, Lovely Day." So that was really fun to look back on that, he was born around that time with that song. And at 14:50, my placenta came out. After laying on me for a while, I'm not sure how long because I didn't track it at all, but he was then checked. I was just laying in the bed, just resting and feeling really, really tired and feeling really hungry because I barely ate. So then Musa had the skin to skin. He was sitting on the couch at first, just relaxing, and then Musa did a prayer with Sahid, because our son is called Sahid. I didn't say that yet. And then I was trying to feed him, which was difficult because my nipples were coming back a little bit. But then we used this sucking tool that the doctor had that didn't really help too much. So I got a nipple cover that really helped. But he didn't really drink much, and the doctor said that's fine because babies are okay for 24 hours on their reserves. He did suck a little bit later on, but not really drinking fully. But I wasn't too worried about it as I had already been leaking colostrum, so I was like, okay, it's gonna be okay. I felt like dates was something easy and quick to eat, so I had 2 dates, and another doctor, the assistant doctor, who's not the assistant doctor, but she asked, do you want something to drink? So I asked for tea with sugar. Not that I usually drink my tea with sugar, but I felt like I just needed some energy. And that also came with a certain cookie that you have in the Netherlands. It's kind of like a bread mixed with cookie kind of situation. While I was laying there eating the dates and stuff, I felt cramps in my tummy, and it really felt like my body was so exhausted, and it felt like I had ran 20 kilometers. Bless you, gezondheid. Bless you, gezondheid. Bless you, gezondheid. I was asked if I was ready to take a shower, and in my head I thought, no. But, the tea and the dates were giving me a little bit of energy, so then I took a shower. They told me not to look down. I'm grateful that I was able to sit in the shower. I didn't bring my own soap, which I expected it to be there, but it wasn't there. So that's something to know for next time, if that is going to happen. Inshallah, could happen in the future if we're going to be blessed, but not at all anytime soon. But that's just something that I noticed. I took a shower. I did get lightheaded from the heat after the shower. And during the shower, I was able to pee a little bit, which stung a little bit. But yeah, I got dressed after I was lightheaded and was helped. And I didn't even see much. I mean, I did see a little bit of diluted stuff, when I was standing up eventually. But I was just, I think, getting lightheaded and feeling like I was going to faint because of the heat, really, and exhaustion, I think. So I got dressed and I was so confused by the combination that my mom and Musa picked. They got this pink loose pants, which was lovely, but they combined it with a soccer shirt. That's fine. It was all loose and nicely fitting. So I am only the one to blame because I didn't prepare a hospital bag, because I did not expect for Sahid to come earlier, because the check on Thursday, I was 37 weeks and the Sunday was 37 weeks and 3 days. I really didn't expect Sahid to come earlier than, what I thought in my head. I thought he was going to stay until 40 weeks or so, but you never know. So after the shower, I tried to feed Sahid again, but this time I used the sucking tool again. It didn't work, so I got the nipple cover. He did drink like a tiny suction sip, I guess, but he didn't really properly drink. But that's okay. Then his temperature was checked again. He cried really loudly. Speaking of which, I totally forgot to mention, when he was born, he cried. That was a beautiful sound. It was not too long at all. When he was on top of me, it was just cool. He did seem to be tired and kind of, suf. What is that in English? Like, he just went through a lot, of course, for the first time in his small life. So he did seem a little tired, but he got more alert later on. He was, of course, a newborn baby who sleeps a lot, but he did have his eyes open right away. Then I had to choose what clothing I wanted him to wear. I chose an outfit that my mom picked, and we were told that we can leave the hospital soon, so I said goodbye to one of the doctors. I called my friends. Then we figured out how the car seat worked, and I was sitting in the wheelchair again. I totally forgot about that. I was gonna just walk and go to the car like that, but they were like, no, we're going with the wheelchair. I was like, oh yeah, of course, I forgot. And we got home and I sat with Sahid on the couch. I called my brother. Musa ordered some food. And then we went to bed at 11. But the whole nighttime thing was very tricky because Sahid had a lot of slime. So I was very worried about that. Basically, I was alert and Musa and I took turns watching him because I could not sleep properly. Every sound he made after he kind of like choked on his slime made me very, very, very awake and alert and not capable of sleeping properly. But, it's all worth it. So yeah, that is the birth story of our beautiful son, Sahid. We are very, very blessed to have birthed a healthy son. For us to be healthy, I was not using any medications. I did use the TENS machine, as I mentioned. I used that throughout the whole pregnancy, or birthing, sorry. But towards the end, I didn't really notice that it worked that much. But, that you're in a different mindset then, as you're trying to birth your child and push your child out. And before, it was just enduring the contractions. So yeah, our beautiful son is born. Our beautiful Sahid is born. He is so cute. You can feel so much love for your child, and I finally understand the parents that I have been working with as a teacher. Like, I would sometimes tell parents, like, oh, it's okay, your child's gonna start school, it's okay. But now I totally understand the whole umbilical cord thing. You can be so in love with your own child. It's so beautiful. And he fell asleep again. So now I'm gonna eat because it is getting late. Wow. In 1 minute, it's 14:39, the time he was born. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for watching today's video. Please leave a comment below and we can have a conversation down there. I hope to see you in another video. So grateful. You're up now?